Hello everyone and welcome back to World of Tanks with Black Nike. Today it's time for a little preview of what's to come in patch 9.5, and I see here that I'm put into the clan JKYZ, and my personal rating seems to have gone up since last time I've made a real video, so it's a bit upgraded up there. For the rest, there's not really any upgrades of the game while looking at the garage, but what you see here is also already a new tank. I've already added 4 of the tanks I'm going to preview in this video from the British as a primary, and we're going to take a look at them soon. We're first going to take a look at the tech tree. So let's see. The sound of the surroundings have changed quite a lot. And you can see here, and I've researched everything already, from the M2 all the way to the FV 4005, which actually is stage 2 of the Conway. But that one didn't really exist. Vehicle details. This tank destroyer project was developed on the basis of the Centurion Mark III tank in the early 1950s. The vehicle was initially tested with a mechanized ammo rack, however the ammo rack did not fit the turret and was cancelled. One prototype was manufactured and underwent trials, but the vehicle never entered mass production. So that tank didn't actually get into mass production. They did enter one prototype. But we're not going to talk about the later vehicles in this video. We're going to talk about the first 3, the M2, the Stuart 1.4, the M3 Grant, actually the British version of the M3 Lee, and the Sherman 3. The Archer will be in a special video because I am a big fan of some of the new British vehicles, and the Archer is one of those. So that one will be in a separate video. But besides that, there have been some small changes to the rest. And yeah, new missions are available, it says. You have here the tier 5 tank destroyers took 4. It's a mission with 20 for 20 commendation lists reward vehicle for completion with honors of all missions animated operation cover. And well, if we take a look at what we can do, we can get a reward for this tank when we complete 15 missions of each. And when we go back, T28 Concepts will be taking more missions. The T55A will be after that with even more commendations completed, and then we have the object 260, which is the last reward for just about completing every one of those missions out here, if I'm correct. And the first ones aren't really that hard. If you take a look, the Ghost spot enemy vehicles and enable your allies to cause at least 1000 health points of damage to vehicles spotted by you, but you have to remain undetected. Be on Malinovka, get into the bushes and stay there. Secondary conditions though: use the camouflage net equipped and have a camouflage that corresponds to the season. Well, that's not really that hard either. Take a light tank, put a camo net on it and a camouflage, and a few missions and you should have it done. And you get, besides the large repair kit, automatic fire extinguisher and large first aid kit, also 35,000 credits. So it's another easy way to earn money. But that's the 10th mission. You need to complete 9 other missions before that one. And at last, but last not least, in the light tanks part, well, you have to assist your allies in causing at least 2000 health points of damage by spotting the enemy vehicles or destroying the enemy vehicles' tracks. And, well, secondary conditions, assist in destroying at least 2 enemy vehicles. Well, you will get bunks in the barracks and a female crew member. So that will be for, yeah, well, completing the primary condition, and the secondary condition will get you another 50,000 gold. And there are also hints and this small description. And, well, the requirements of all those missions are available for vehicles higher than tier 4. So you have to have a light tank that's higher than tier 4. If I take a look at my light tanks, and then from all the nations, you will see those light tanks here, and the MT-25 is above tier 4, and I've got 3 American light tanks above tier 4 and some Chinese light tanks that are above tier 4, and also the ELC AMX, which should be pretty good at that. So there's that. We're going back to UK there, and yeah, that's about the new missions. Taking a little, well, statistic of all these 4 new tanks. Here we have them. And, well, rewards for sets of each vehicle types, a female crew member, a commendation list. We'll get stuff like that. And there were female crew drivers in the Second World War driving some tanks, because they actually needed it sometimes. Although it doesn't come that often. But when we take a look at these rewards, these took 4, and I'm not really that well known in the tier 5 tank destroyer worlds, although I do have a lot of fun with a tier 4 British tank destroyer. But 360 hit points normal from my knowledge. The traverse speed and top speed are normal for a Stug, with side plating of course. The hull armor ain't that good, but it's tier 5 and it's a German Stug. It should be pretty good at sniping, although the standard shell damage it's a bit lower than the normal Stug at tier 5 has. Its penetration is at an average 2, and the rate of fire is well better than most tier 5 tank destroyers. So, and you shouldn't really account for the view range to spot your enemies with this tank before they get to you. It is equipped with a 7.5 cm Stug 40L48 gun, which is actually a average gun or a decent gun for a tier 5 tank destroyer, and will consist of 4 crew members. And then we're going on from a tier 5 tank destroyer to a tier 7 tank destroyer, and it will show a light tank detail there, but as you can see, a tank destroyer T-28 concept. And this was a, well, pretty big gun, a pretty big tank it seems. It has 880 hit points for a tier 7 tank destroyer. That's actually pretty much. The weight, 70 tons. It's, well, a lot. It has 960 horsepower. This tank, by the way, will weigh more than any other tier 7 tank. There is not a single tank with more weight in the game at tier 7 than this tank. So it should get you somewhere, but the top speed is a bit lacking, 29 kilometers per hour, and the traverse speed only 18 degrees per second. Although its frontal hull armor of 203 millimeters will defend you pretty much, you will get flanked pretty easily, so the 101 mm side armor and 50 mm of rear armor aren't actually enough to protect you from light tanks or medium tanks that will be flanking you. And you are at tier 7, you will face pretty much light and medium tanks. And the top armor, well, I can't see it, it's actually a soft stat, but I think it's somewhere around in between the 101 to or 50 millimeters of sight of the armor's values. And the standard shell damage, I have made a small calculation. The average is for 320 damage. And if you take a quarter of that, it's 80, so 80 below you get to 240, 80 below you get to 400. You will be able to deal massive blows at tier 7 with its 105mm gun. So this 105mm gun has the same damage as higher tier 100mm guns, but it will shoot a little bit slower at 6 rounds per minute. That's about 8, that's actually a 10-second reload time, so that's not bad for the damage it does. And the gun traverse speed is 18 degrees per second, so the gun will perform pretty well. And you can see here that it has, well, of course it has no turret. Fuel range is 370 meters, which is actually pretty usable. But you should not rely on it. You should always use your teammates to spot for you. But if the enemy is in front, the 203mm of frontal hull armor can protect you pretty much. And then when we take a look at the next tank, a tier 9 medium tank, also again from the Russians. It is a tier 9 T55A premium medium tank. It's actually an upgraded version of the T55. T55 being a bit more modern than the T54, but they will be pretty similar. It has a 100mm Panzerkanone well mounted, and that's actually a kind of a German type gun, it seems. At 1700 hit points, it's tier 9, it's pretty good. 580 horsepower with a 37 ton weight is pretty decent. It will make the top speed of 50 kilometers per hour, I suppose. Traverse speed of 50 degrees per second, and I'm sorry guys for not being able to show you any of these tanks in the garage, because well, they aren't in my garage because I didn't unlock them. I will try to unlock them because these are rewards that will be coming into the game. The hull armor though, for a medium tank it's pretty decent, but do not expect the hull armor to bounce too much. The turret armor though, 200mm of frontal hull armor, turret armor, sorry I misspoke a little bit there, and 160mm of side turret armor. And that is pretty damn good for a tier 9 medium tank. This tank, well, it will pretty much be good as a hull down medium tank, brawling tank. And the standard shell damage of a 320 average. It's the same as with a tank destroyer, although this one has 5mm less of diameter in the shells, so it will overpower armor much less, a little bit less, but it's a tier 9 again, and it has a compensation of getting more shell penetration and having a higher rate of fire, although the 7.89 rounds per minute will probably be a bit higher if you put a gun, will probably not be correct if you put a gun rammer on it and a brothers in arms skill on all of your crew members. And a third traverse speed of 46 degrees per second. This tank can also, well, function a bit as an active scout with a view range of 395 meters, which is, well, about the normal for a tier 9 medium tank. And the signal range of 730 meters is, well, kind of normal. And then I saw the Object 260 there. Oh, by the way, the T55A I see now is a German, so not a Russian. And the Object 260 though, that one is Russian. So the Russians will get a tier 10 premium heavy tank, the Object 260. Model 1945. The design plans were completed in September 1945, and if they would have, well, continued building this, although no prototypes were manufactured, this would be a pretty terrifying tank. Well, you can already see it here. It has a 60 weight load limit, which actually isn't, well, it's actually pretty normal for a tier 10 heavy tank. If you take a look at the Russian heavy tanks at tier 10, it will be around the same. Although a 1200 horsepower engine, that's just as much as the Mouse has. It has the same horsepower, it has the same grunt in its engine as the Mouse. A tank that weighs about 3 times as much. And you will see it, the top speed is also 3 times higher. It will do a 60 kilometers per hour, and well, since it's 3 times lighter than the Mouse is, it will be able to make that top speed. And it has a traverse speed of 28 degrees per second. And I will say this will be one hell of a assault heavy tank. And I will say that it's an assault heavy tank with the whole armor I see in the picture. It seems to be pretty much sloped like the 110 has, and the 110 has 30 millimeters less, but it has, well, practically, if you charge the enemy straight ahead, it will have a 260 millimeters of hull armor. In this tank, the hull armor practically, if you charge the enemy, well, full ahead, it will probably have more than 300 millimeters of hull armor practically, so it's terrifying. Even at tier 10, that's terrifying. And that's not all. The turret armor front is a 350 millimeters thick, and the sides 240 millimeters, so that's not really that easily to penetrate. And the front of the turret ain't that big, so you mostly hit the sides from the front, and that's impenetrable then. And the damage, well, it's the same as the IS-7 has, although this one has a little bit smaller gun. It's 440 average damage. You can easily count that when you, well, take half of the difference of the minimum and the maximum. So, and the standard shell penetration ain't really that bad too. The rate of fire though, it's about 12 seconds reloads, I'd say. A little bit below that. The turret traverse speed of 26 degrees per second is actually pretty nice. But it also has a view range of 400 meters, so when you charge you will spot enemies pretty soon. And you will be able to let loose pretty fast. And a signal range of 720 meters will be more than enough. And well, that's actually rewards for the missions that I somehow, if we close this, yeah, here they are. If you complete the missions, you will be able to get these tanks. And I suppose a lot of players will get this Stup 4 tier 5 tank destroyers quite easily in their garage. But then moving on to get the T-28 concepts or even the T-55A will already be a pretty hard, well, working job actually. You will have to put a lot of time in the game to get those tanks. And the most hardcore players that are actually pretty good will be able to do so. And the missions for each of these tanks will be different. And there will be more missions for each tank to complete. And well, missions and specials, well, there are currently no missions available, so I hope this information already reveals quite a lot. And well, we're now going to take a look at the first 4 new tanks that I was going to look at. The tier 2 M2, well, light tank. This is a light tank, and I have it elite. The Stuart 1.4, which is also elite already, because we're going to show them in their elite stats. And it will be a separate video of all these tanks performing in-game, in a, well, battle. And then we have the Grants. Well, they call it only Grant, but it's actually an M3, the British version of the M3 Lee. And the Sherman 3, which has, well, British equipment and stuff on it. And so we're going to take a look at the stat points. And we'll be comparing a little bit about these tanks with the other tier 2 tanks that are comparable with these tanks. So starting off with the M2, the tier 2 British light tank. It has 165 hit points, a width and load limit of, well, 11.6, 14.2 load limits tons, an engine power of 262 horsepower. It does do 58 kilometers per hour, which is, well, about pretty fast, but not as fast as most tier 2 light tanks. Its reverse speed of 40 degrees per second, so it will do pretty nice turns. And it's about the same as the M2 light tank of the Americans, I suppose. If we take a look at these tanks' vehicle details, and then from this tank, it has a bit more hit points, it has a bit more weight, and a bit more grunt in the engine. It has the same top speed, but better traverse speed, although what you see here is the stats of a normal M2 light tank. They look kind of the same. The British used quite a lot of the American designs, and you can already see here American light tank, the M2A4 variant. And well, the Americans actually have it as an infantry support tank, and the British used it as a, well, tank. Not really a tank fighting tank. It has a 37mm gun, so hull armor is the same. Turret armor a bit better, although the turret from these stats might be from the stock turret. The standard shell damage, well, you can see the difference there. And penetration, there's also a difference, but the rate of fire here is from the autoloader. If I had the autoloader loaded on this one too, then, well, it's all about the same on each of those two tanks. So this one should compare quite the same with the rest of all these tier 2 light tanks. And well, what's else to say? It's actually a copy, or actually a lease from the Americans, and that's what the British did. They landed a lot of the tanks from the United States, because, well, the British weren't capable of mass producing a lot of different tanks and improving tanks a lot. And well, later on you will see that there are actually real British tanks, and that's after tier 5, tier 6. So yeah, the British did do quite a lot of good things with these tanks though. So I do hope I see a lot of these tanks entering battle into the well, World of Tanks real life server, or the live server, when 9.5 comes out, because it's actually an M2 and they both lead to pretty decent tanks in the tech trees. Although I suppose a lot of you guys hated the M3 Lee, and that means you will probably going to hate the Grant too. The ones that use the M3 Lee as a, well, favorite tank, you will probably love the Grant too. It's about the same. Then we have the Stuart 1.4. It's actually, well, if we take a look at the vehicle stats, mass produced from 1941 and supplied to the UK under lend-lease. Another lend-lease products. There were almost 7,000 supplied to the British from M3 to M5A1 variants, although the Stuart 1.4, it already says it's different. The M3 tanks were designated by Stuart 1 by the British, while the M3A1 version was designated as Stuart 3. The first saw action in the Battle of Sidi Rezegh. So the Stuart 1.4 is the British variant of the M3 Stuarts to M5A1 Stuart, and the M3 Stuart is, well, we can already take a guess. Of course, here we have the M3 Stuart, and its hit points are a bit lower, its weight is a little bit lower, the engine power, well, from the stock engine is a bit lower, but the top speed is higher, traverse speed is a bit lower. All these stats, they're already comparable. And the M5 Stuart, well, it did undergo a few changes, but this one is a little bit, well, more advanced than the actual Stuart 4 variant, which should be the M5A1's variant, and that one is actually, no, not there, right here. And you can see here it's already also a tier 4 tank, and this was actually the same as a Stuart 4, about the same. So the Stuart 4 should have about the same stats as a well, M5A1 Stuart, but that's a small difference only. And well, that's actually all about the Stuart 1.4. It's a little bit better M3 Stuart, or a little bit worse M5 Stuart, but the M5 Stuart is a tier 4 tank and this is a tier 3 tank, so it's actually going to be pretty competitive at the tier 3 parts of the battles. And moving on, after that comes the Grand, or actually the M3 Grand, with 6 crew members, so this one actually has quite a lot of crew members. It has a different turret than the M3 Lee, a British variant turret, but the gun is the 75mm M3 gun, which actually is the same caliber as on the, we're going to pick the Tech 3 again. Where did I leave that tank? There we have it, the M3 75mm gun, and well, it's actually a exact copy, same penetration, same damage, same dispersion, same aiming time. You all have a, well, British variant of the M3 Lee, with a slightly different turret, because, well, the Americans had their own turret, the British had their own turret. There won't be that much of a difference. So everyone knows the M3 Lee to be a horrifying tank, and nobody likes it and wants to skip it if they can. Well, as you can see here, the M3 Lee ain't really that easily to skip, but most people go to the M4 and then to the M4A3 Sherman Jumbo to get to the T29. So they also skip the T1 and the M6, which actually are pretty good tanks, but obviously not everyone likes those tanks. And well, the British version of the M3 Lee, with just about the same stats as the M3 Lee has. If you play this tank like a tank destroyer, you'll probably love it. If you play this tank like a medium tank, you'll probably hate it. If you combine the two, you'll probably be so good that a lot of people are probably not even going to like you. And after that comes the Sherman 3, the British variant of the M4 Sherman. We're going to take a look at the vehicle details here. The American M4A2 medium tank was manufactured with a diesel engine and supplied under a lend-lease to the UK, where it was designated the Sherman 3. If we take a look, M4A2 did have something. Here we have it, M4A2E4. And well, that actually is a normal M4, but this tank should be comparable to it. But we're going to take the M4 Sherman. And I do have it completely upgraded, although I have it with the howitzer, and this one is equipped with the 75mm. Oh, hold on a second. 76mm M1A1 gun, which also can be put onto the M4 Sherman as a American variant. But the 105mm always has a lot of more fun into the gameplay. And you can also use a 6-pounder Mark V gun, which actually shoots pretty quick. But hold on a second. That's an upgraded gun of the. That's an upgrade version of that one. Well, it shoots very quick. Maybe a bit too quick. It only does 75 damage per shell. And when you take a look at it, it's pretty damn tiny. But if you take a look at this gun in action, it will be like shooting every 1.5 seconds. Let's see, can we put a gun rammer on it? We can put a gun rammer on it, which will reduce it even more, the loading time even more. And then you will have a tank with about 3000 DPM, which is maybe a little bit too much for tier 5. And it also has, well, a bit of armor, which at tier 4 and tier 5 with tank destroyers you do not really have, except the 82. That one has maybe a little bit too much armor. But you got 3 pretty nice options with this tank, and stock with the 6-pounder gun or the 75mm M3 gun. This tank should be pretty easy to play anyway. So this one should be a lot of fun after the grants. As you can see, well, we're closing that one. After the grant to the Sherman 3, you'll get the Firefly. We'll be talking about that one in a later video. And it will have the well, most famous gun of the Second World War from the British, called the 17-pounder QOF gun, if I'm correct. OQF gun, which is also mounted on the tier 7 heavy tank, the Black Prince, or on the TOG 2 or on the 1815A. Those two also have the OQF 17-pounder gun, which is pretty damn powerful. So I hope all of you guys got a lot of information from this video, and I hope you sure are going to watch the next video that will be about the gameplay of these 4 tanks. And well, we'll be taking a look at more of these tanks later on in the future, when I have some time to do so. And well, I'll see you guys on the battlefield, hopefully. And watch your backs, because maybe I'll be shooting into it.